Hello, this is the Lord's Legion, and welcome to the best villains ever. The show in which I talk about a specific villain and talk about their backstories, abilities, greatest feats, and why I love them so much. Now for those who might have been following my channel for quite a while, then you would know that this is the first episode I've done in almost a year at this point. And truth be told, I honestly miss doing these videos because they have always been my favourite and I love exploring different villains from other mediums. And to sort of kick off this series revival with a huge bang, I've decided to focus on not only one of the most notoriously evil villains within the Marvel Universe, but quite possibly one of the most despicable villains in fiction. The villain in question, of course, being the Red Skull. So without further ado, let's begin with his backstory. So Johann Schmidt's path to villainy pretty much started from the moment he was born, as his mother unfortunately passed away moments after giving birth, while Johann's father, who was overwhelmed by this said death, decided to drown the baby out of purely drunken blind rage. But after being stopped by attempting to kill his own son, he decided to take his own life due to guilt, leaving Johann Schmidt to be an orphan who would be taken into a care home, where he would spend most of his childhood being abused by other children due to him not having any parents. Not wanting to handle the abuse any further, Johann decided to run away from the care home and wander around the streets of Germany to become a thief. There was this brief spark of hope within Johann's past when he was offered a job as a sweeper for a Jewish shopkeeper, and even went so far as to develop some feelings for the shopkeeper's daughter. But this said hope was short-lived, as he decided to one day force himself on the daughter, and because she refused him, Johann decided to let out his frustration on her by killing her with a shovel. Sometime later in the distant future, Johann decided to join one of the many Nazi parties as a way to fulfill his bloodlust and hatred. But as times passed, Johann was unimpressed of being a prop and instead wanted to be a fighter like the SS. And in doing so, Johann found his way through Hitler and ultimately impressed him to the point of becoming an official SS officer, as Adolf Hitler could sense that Johann could ultimately become the best Nazi imaginable. And after being groomed by Hitler's influence as well as some strict training, Johann Schmidt would become the second most powerful man in Germany, second to only Adolf Hitler. And after many twisted accomplishments that Johann has achieved over the past few months under Hitler's wing, Adolf decided to give Johann a brand new identity, giving him a mask that does resemble his pure hatred, and thus the Red Skull was born. Now, analysing Red Skull's origin, you can see it in two ways, which either portrays Johann as this tainted soul that was pretty much doomed from the beginning, or is just a mere mortal who is just the personification of hatred and rage. And there is a good argument for either case, but at the end of the day, there is a clear reason on why Johann Schmidt, aka the Red Skull, is among the most evil villains within the Marvel Universe due to his upbringing as well as his ruthlessness. Now, when you think of a villain who is very influential like the Red Skull, you would imagine that they would have plenty of powers and abilities at their disposal. But in the case of the Red Skull specifically, he really doesn't have many powers to speak of, or at least depending on which body he takes. In fact, the only consistent power the Red Skull has is immortality through the usage of both cloning as well as mind transference. And while the origin behind this said power is a bit of a blur to some, this does grant Red Skull the ability to cheat death by possessing other minds. Whether Johann decides to transfer his mind to certain individuals, some genetic templates that do resemble Captain America in terms of physique, or even the empty shell of Arnim Zolar's robot body. And speaking of cloned bodies, one of Red Skull's clones decided to take Charles Xavier's brain, and with that he was able to tap into telepathic abilities such as cloaking, mind blast, mind control, mind shield, and several other telepathic related powers. And with that, the Red Skull can transform into his most powerful form, being Red Onslaught, with the additional powers of Astral Plane Tap, Reality Warping, Size Alteration, Shape-Shifting, Optic Beams, and seemingly everything else the regular Onslaught can do, such as Magneto's magnetic powers. But even with all of his powers aside, the Red Skull also has genius level intellect as well as a strategic mind, not to mention being the master of disguise, being a very skilled hand-to-hand combatant, and even being skilled with pretty much any form of weapon imaginable. His most infamous weapon of course being the Dust of Death, in which a victim's face would resemble a Red Skull within seconds, only to fatally die moments later. Now the Red Skull has achieved plenty of incredible feats over the years, and because of how his power level is often pretty inconsistent because most people don't know which body he currently stems in, for the most part I'm going to be cramming all of these into one, and bear in mind all of these stem from the 616 counterpart. For starters, the Red Skull always kills his sparring partners after a single match, as well as being capable of beating Crossbones in a single one-on-one fight. And mind you, Crossbones is widely considered to be on par with Captain America in terms of physical fitness. He can also go toe-to-toe with the Kingpin and pretty much beat him to a stalemate, which is impressive given the size of Wilson Fisk. Plus, not only was the Red Skull able to outmaneuver Black Widow's stingers, but he also practically beat her within an inch of her life. Johann Schmidt is so evil in fact that even the Joker, the human embodiment of evil, eventually turned on him, and as well as that the Red Skull is shown to be immune to the Joker toxin. Not to mention that the Red Skull has also led many teams over the years such as Hydra, the S-Men, Watch Dogs, Skeleton Crew, the New World Order, as well as leading a few of Hitler's teams, and even went so far as to rule Latveria while Dr. Doom was missing. And on top of that, the Red Skull also cheated death numerous times, and within that, as well as his Master of Disguises, was able to manipulate his way into the position in the new form of US Secretary, under the disguise of Del Rusk. And in terms of his more chaotic accomplishments, the Red Skull is quite possibly the closest human to ever tap into the abilities of the power cosmic, as well as stealing Professor X's brain and tapping into the mind of a telepath. And in turn, as previously mentioned, led into the birth of Red Onslaught, a being that essentially beats both the Avengers and the X-Men, and only lost thanks to the aid of Magneto and his Axis of Evil. Now in terms of the Red Skull and other mediums, the most prominent of which of course stems from the MCU, portrayed at first by Hugo Weaving. And while he had very limited screen time in Captain America the First Avenger, I believe Hugo Weaving embodies the Red Skull and is pretty much one of the best villains in the MCU as far as I'm concerned. And given this character's fate in Avengers Infinity War and onwards, while his future remains uncertain, it does seem like we are going to have more of this character in the future. And in terms of other comic book counterparts, we also have the Ultimate Red Skull, who was revealed to be Captain America's son, to which this more modern take on the character is universally hated. And as far as animated appearances are concerned, the Red Skull from Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes did start off as a one and done villain, then ultimately transformed into one of the biggest hitters in Season 2. And lastly, we have his appearance in Avengers Assemble, which strangely enough shifted him into more of an Iron Man villain and also gave birth to the concept of Iron Skull, both of which I felt were stupid directions. Now as far as villains are concerned, very few could even rival the Red Skull in terms of darkness, hatred, and even just pure villainy. He has been around since near enough the beginning of the Marvel Universe and has caused havoc in his wake at every turn, with no real sense of remorse or empathy within his soul. And while he believes that his ideologies and his New World Order should come into fruition so that the world can fall under his perfect image, Red Skull by all accounts is the definition of a tyrant and the personification of hatred. So because of his status as an iconic villain, as well as being one of Marvel's most diabolical and even being the personification of pure rage and hatred, this is why I personally believe that the Red Skull is one of the best villains of all time. So are you a huge fan of the Red Skull, and what is your personal favourite incarnation or storyline featuring the Hydra tyrant? Comment below and share some thoughts. And as always, thank you guys for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Take care and have a good one.